The presentation demonstrates the differences between upper motor neuron from the lower motor neuron facial palsy, mainly involving the muscles of facial expression, which are supplied by cranial number 7, that is facial nerve. There are two types of facial palsy: upper motor neuron facial palsy or supranuclear palsy, and the lower motor neuron facial palsy or the infranuclear palsy. In upper motor neuron facial palsy, there is involvement mainly of the corticobulbar fibers, which are controlling the facial nerve nucleus situated in the pons. In this palsy, the upper face is normal, but there is spastic paresis of the contralateral lower face. Example of such palsy seen in medial midbrain syndrome, that is Weber syndrome, or the stroke of internal capsule. The other type of facial palsy is lower motor neuron or infranuclear palsy, in which there is involvement of facial nerve. In this palsy, there is flaccid paralysis of the ipsilateral entire half of the face, involving the muscles of facial expression. Example of this palsy is seen in Bell's palsy or littoral pontine syndrome. Now, in order to understand the two types of palsy, we must know that the mean motor nucleus of the facial nerve, which is situated in the pons, is controlled by the corticobulbar fibers coming from the face area of the motor cortex. The facial motor nerve nucleus is divided into two parts. The upper part of the facial motor nucleus innervates the upper part of the face, mainly the frontalis, corrugator supercilii, orbicularis oculi muscles, whereas the lower part of the facial motor nucleus supplies the lower part of the face, the remaining facial muscles. So the left side of the facial nucleus supplies the left half of the face, whereas the right side of the facial nucleus will supply the right side of the face. Also, the facial motor nucleus is under control of the corticobulbar fiber coming from the motor cortex. The upper part of the facial nucleus is controlled by fibers from both side cerebral hemispheres, whereas the lower part of the face is controlled by the opposite, that is contralateral, cerebral hemisphere. So we can see here if there is lesion number 1. That is the upper motor neuron lesion of the corticobulbar tract. So these fibers, which are innervating the same side as well as opposite side, upper part of the facial nucleus, they are damaged. Also, the fibers which are innervating the opposite lower part of the facial nucleus are damaged. But the upper part of the facial nucleus of both the side will be spared because these parts are also controlled by the opposite unaffected side of the corticobulbar fibers. So as we can see here, these fibers of the right side corticobulbar fibers control not only the left but also the right upper part of the facial nucleus. And we know that from the upper part of the facial nucleus, the fiber innervate the upper part of the face. So in this situation, the upper part of the face is spared, whereas these fibers, which innervate the contralateral lower part of the facial nucleus, which will supply the contralateral lower part of the face, will be affected. So in upper motor neuron type of facial palsy, the upper face is spared, the contralateral lower face will be affected. In lesion number 2, that is infranuclear lesion or injury to the fibers of the facial nerve. If this lesion is on the left side, as we can see here, then the fibers coming from upper part as well as lower part of the facial nucleus will be affected, which are supplying the same side face. So, in case of lower motor neuron, Palsy, there is ipsilateral, entire half of the face will be affected. So the Bell's palsy is an example of the lower motor neuron type of facial palsy, that is infranuclear facial palsy. And here the lesion is of the facial nerve fibers, which may occur at or below the stylomestrate foramen. The characteristics of the Bell's palsy include all of the following on the affected side, that is ipsilateral infranuclear facial palsy, in which there is marked atrophy of the facial muscles, facial asymmetry of the same side. Here we can see that there is loss of wrinkles in the skin of the forehead. The eyebrows are not raised, the eyebrows droop, the eye remain open, there is difficulty in tightly closing the eye. There is loss of nasolabial fold, so it becomes flat. There is drooping of corner of mouth and saliva dribbles from the angle of mouth. The lips cannot be held tightly together or pursed. There is difficulty in keeping the food in mouth while chewing on the affected side. And there is loss of wrinkling of the skin of neck. So such type of facial palsy on the same side affecting the whole hemiface is known as the Bell's palsy.